During the time period of you being separated from your fiance, what was going through your mind? Good news don't always start off as good news. Here's the story of the Jetts. Continue to watch and see how this story turns around.
Hello, I'm Tausha Jett, and this is my husband Brannon, and we are here to share our good news.
So my name is Brannon Jett. Story about how I met my wife was pretty amazing, actually. Working at Turning Point Academy, I've been there for about 6 years. We were short-staffed, and we was in the process of hiring new teachers. And instantly, I was like, "Who is that?" Right? Something was just telling me that I got to get to know who she was, right? And then instantly, I was like, God, just give me the opportunity to allow her to get to know who I am as a person. Then I was divorced from a 16-year-old marriage, and at that particular time, I was 7 years divorced, raising my 2 kids by myself, right? So it was just us, and that time I was done with dating. I put everything in me in raising my kids, right? And it was a struggle, but so I put all my focus. I was raising my daughter, my stepson, and but when I met her, instantly I had an energy like, this is when you need to start trying to get back out there and introduce yourself to somebody, right? So I met her, and right off, man, I was like overwhelmed. She gave me an opportunity to have discussions, right? So when we start having these discussions, I found out that she was in the process of going through the same thing that I went through before I got divorced. And then we found out that we had a lot of similarities with raising our kids by ourselves. You know what I mean? Family, engagements and stuff like that. And it was like, we lived through the same circumstances. When I met her, boom, instantly, even before she even called me, I still was like, that's it. That I knew from the day that I seen her walking in school in them gray pants on.
He had to get to the pants, right?
He had to get there.
He had to.
I knew that this girl was special. It was just something about her. Right. And then, find out about how she raised the kids by herself and stuff like that. I was like, man, that's amazing. But going through that stuff, you know exactly what you will tolerate, what you won't tolerate, right? And we met each other right there. You know what I mean?
Right.
My special part of the day is what? Bed, right? Because that's the time that I get to thank God and just hold her. That's the most peaceful part of my day, right? And that's the part that I look forward to every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So now you found this missing link in your life. Then 2020 hits. COVID.
So 2020 hits, and Jett's family has a beach trip every year that they do.
Okay.
This was around June of 2020. I told him, I said, well, I really don't want to go, but he, being the family guy, he was like, well, let's just go ahead. It was 3 days. So we did it. We went to the beach. Thought we were very careful as far as, went in with the Lysol wipes. We did everything that they say, you're supposed to do. We didn't do a whole lot at the beach. We're in the room for a majority. It was about 10 of us. So we did go out to a buffet. That was the one thing that we did, and we think that was where we probably shouldn't have gone. So long story short, we did the beach. We came back on that Sunday. He had football practice
Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Okay, so on Wednesday he started getting symptoms of a cold on Wednesday. As the days progressed, the cold was progressing.
Pretty much like flu symptoms.
Yes.
Right. So what it was weak, and then there was a little chill. So normally what I do, I just take me some Access Cold Plus. I'm fine. Right. This particular time, the Access Cold Plus did not work at all. Right. And I didn't even think about COVID.
We went through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm like, Jett, maybe you need to go to the doctor. And he's like, he's still thinking I'm okay. During this time, he found out his sister was also not feeling well. Same flu symptoms, same symptoms he was having. On Sunday, he was really weak, and it was almost a task just to be able to turn over to in the bed, and trying to get back and forth to the bathroom it took everything out of him. Like, he had no energy. So that Monday morning, soon as 8 o'clock hit, we called the doctor. By this time, he was so weak that I had to help him get dressed in order to get him to the doctor that day.
So this is 5 days later?
Yes. This was on Monday. Well, we got to the doctor's office. The doctor comes out to the car. He has his little pulse machine, and he's doing his checks, and he gets to his pulse, and he says, hold on, wait a minute, I forgot something. So the doctor runs back in the doctor's office, and he comes back out. He has another one of the little pulse things, and he puts that on him. And after he checks his pulse the second time, he looks at me, and he's like, he's got to go to the hospital now. And he's like, by ambulance. And I'm like, huh? And so then he's tapping on him, asking him who he is, and if he knows who the president is, and if he knows just different things about what he should know. Because at the rate his pulse was, I think it was, or what was your pulse or your oxygen?
Oxygen levels dropped down.
It was like 70.
So he wasn't sure how I was even conscious at the time.
Yeah, he was like, right? he didn't understand that. And
wow.
So they immediately come out of the doctor's office. They bring the oxygen machine, and they put him on oxygen right then. So of course, this is at the height of COVID, at what we thought that time, before everything else has happened now. He tells me, well, you're not going to be able to go. They'll call you. During his transport, or maybe by the time he got to the main hospital, the doctor calls me, and she's trying to get me prepared. And she's like, probably going to have to put him on a ventilator. At this point, this is the conversation that she's having with me. So at that point, I'm like, I don't even know where I was at that point. But we were already engaged. We were due to get married. Let's see, we got engaged in November. So about a year and a half.
Okay.
Because we got engaged in November, and our wedding was set for July 25th. So this was June 20th.
Okay.
Was the date. So this was like a month and 5 days before our wedding.
Wow. So you all had actually planned everything out, and I know how weddings are. You had the venue, you had dresses, you had all that stuff already.
Yes.
And then he gets sick.
Yes.
And now everything is just put on hold.
Right.
Right. Okay. So during the time period of you being separated from your fiance, what was going through your mind?
All right, so I'm in the hospital, still up, trying to figure out what's going on. They tell me it's COVID, and then they kept telling me that my numbers weren't right for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
They say your numbers aren't right, and then immediately they were saying we got to put you in ICU, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like, let's try some stuff first. My only thought was, you know, making sure that she was okay. Right? I just lost my mom maybe about a year prior. And I'm thinking, you know, my siblings don't need to go through any more devastation. And I was like, man, this is crazy. So she couldn't come to the hospital, right? And they was telling me things that I didn't want her to know, right? Some stuff. They kept saying pneumonia, respiratory failure. They get me in the room, right? And then they still taking tests, you know, taking blood, boom, 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 boom. And they come back and they was like, you say your numbers are not right, so we have to put you in ICU, right? So and when they talking to me, I'm still sitting up, like processing everything they're saying, right? On oxygen, right? So they get me to the room, something happened. I come back out and the main nurse was talking to me and she just having a conversation like she do with anybody. She was like, you know, you got pneumonia, anything else messing with you? And then when she said that, my foot was kind of like real tight, tingling. I was like, well, I said, my foot ain't right. I said, I can't feel in my foot, right? And she was like, what you mean? I said, it feels like, what's that I told you? Frostbite, right? I said, I feel like my foot, you know, frostbite. And she was like, let me take a look, right? So they took a look, ran tests, come back, I got blood clots, right? From my oxygen levels being so low, right? So now I got pneumonia, respiratory failure, now I got blood clots. I was like, wow. So they looked at that for a while, doctor came back, he was like, listen, we're gonna try something. He said, but if it don't work, we can't risk, you know, get spreading. So if it don't work, we gotta amputate. He said we gotta amputate the left foot, right? So I'm thinking about her again.
Right.
I'm thinking, oh, wow, boy, this is just gonna be crazy for her, right? I got my daughter. She got my daughter. Was at the house at the time. She trying to keep my daughter calm without telling her too much information. So it was a mess, man. So they bring out a boot, some kind of boot, trying to, I don't know what they were trying to do. Get the blood circulating. And they gave me some stuff. It was the most painful stuff in the world. I don't know what it was, but it was like crucial. It was just like to the point where I couldn't even deal with the pain at all, right? And I don't know what happened later, but all I kept thinking about was, I'm not dying without marrying the girl in my dreams, right? That's all I kept thinking about. So I don't know how it came about, but I was like, listen, we gotta get married. Yeah. We gotta get married, man.
Right.
So
yeah, you called and you like, let's go ahead and get married. I'm like, what?
And my sister-in-law husband was a pastor, and I called my sister-in-law and said, hey man, we gotta get married. Y'all gotta marry. Cause they was gonna do it. We initially had them scheduled to do the wedding anyway. Right. So we called them. They worked it out, something where they got everybody on FaceTime or a
like
link, a Zoom link. And got everybody, sent out all the little, you know, the links to everybody. Got on, had a ceremony, and got married. So after we get married, then they bring me out of ICU for maybe a day. So I'm like happy. Yeah. Turn around next day, put me right back in. It got worse, right? They had to link me up to breathing machines. And that's my first time being linked to the breathing machines because my body wasn't breathing at all, right? So they put me on something similar to a ventilator, but I was still conscious, right? But I would go out. So I was on this breathing machine, and it worked for a little while. Then for whatever reason, my oxygen levels wouldn't stabilize. Right? So they had to bring in another breathing machine that would push the air, the oxygen, right? It'll push, especially at night. It'll push because my oxygen levels drop even further down while I was sleeping.
Gotcha.
So that happened for like, shoot, I don't know how long, but it kept going back and forth. And the machine was working 95% of my breathing, right? So they was like, well, when they go from 95 till 2, you can go home. I'm like, wow. So
that was like 3.5 weeks.
I was like,
that was another 3.5 weeks.
So by this time, I'm really thinking that it ain't gonna end well, right? And for 1 second, I was so tired. For 1 second only, I was like, I'm ready to go.
Wow.
Right? For 1 second.
That's after fighting for how many weeks now?
That was like the second week,
Okay.
right? I was like, I'm ready. I was just, for 1 second, right? And that 1 second that I said I was ready to go. So I prayed all before. Then the 1 second that I didn't have the energy, God did, right? He was already, when I'm asking him to come, he was already there, right? He was already there. So I spent all day praying. My mom was gone. And they had been in an isolated room. So I developed anxiety. Never knew what it was, right? And I still didn't know what it was. I just knew I woke up trying to snatch like out of my mind, right? So that started happening. I was like, what in the world is going on, man? I didn't know if it was the medication they was getting. It was something that was making me just like, the anxiety got bad, right? So I prayed, and I was like, I needed comfort. And the bed's facing this way. There was a window this way. And as I'm praying, I see a light come through, right? And when the light come through, it's just like everything just got calm, right? And I was like, Mom, thank you, right? And I just knew who it was, right? And we talked, and for about a few minutes, I was just calm, at peace. And then after that, I would reach out to my wife, and, FaceTime and stuff like that. And her voice is really the only thing. I didn't talk to anybody else but her. And she would stay up late nights. Since I met her, she used to go to sleep with this big fan. Winter time, it don't matter. She got this big fan. And all of them, her daughter, her son, everybody got this big fan. And every time, boom, and then everybody fall asleep, right? So I done got very used to this fan. So it was late one night, and I was struggling. She was asleep, but I called her, and I was like, babe, can you please just get up and cut on the fan so I can hear it? And man, she got up, cut that fan on. She was asleep, and she held that phone by that fan, man. And just to have somebody who give you that support is like so amazing. Where you don't understand how the little things can save somebody's soul, right? Man, and it was just amazing. But that gave me so much comfort to where I was able to bring everything back in. And I don't know what it was, but when I got sick, I got paranoid about. I couldn't sleep on a regular mattress because I felt suffocated. Right, so I slept. The stretcher they used to take you in. I slept on it the whole 5 weeks I was in hospital. Right, they actually had to take out the hospital bed because when I tried laying in it, but when I laid in it, it felt like I was suffocating. I really couldn't. I couldn't. But the stretcher is a lot firmer, right? So I would just lift that up, right? And that was my bed the whole time I was in the hospital.
Wow. The good news really started when that light came through the window for you. because it gave you that peace that you needed, and you felt like that was the presence of your mom.
Mm-hmm.
So when did it start turning around for you?
So when my numbers started dropping, right? I would check my numbers. They'd come in and say, "Oh, you're getting better." 85, 80, every day, right? So, oh, it's finally working. Whatever they're doing is finally working, right? So now we talking. I didn't have no appetite, so I went from like 260 to 215, right, in the hospital. They granted me to go home. She comes and don't even recognize who I am, right? Lost so much weight, right? And she almost didn't recognize me. And from that is when she came. She had to help me in the truck, connect my oxygen, because I was, I couldn't be off of it at all, right? And got these machines and stuff. I got towed around, and I was like, man, this can't be. You know what I mean? The way I'm gonna end up. Like, this cannot be, man.
Yeah, you finally met a guy who you all on the same page, on the same level, planning a wedding. Then all of a sudden, COVID hits, something that none of us has ever experienced before. You're separated from him for weeks. And then when he returns to you, you have to now help him with everything. Tell me what's going through your mind. Like, are you thinking like, is this going to get better, or is this now my new life?
I think a little bit of both. Like, I know I've always heard you're never supposed to question God as to why. But I was there. I mean, after everything that I had gone through, I'm like, and I finally find this person. God, why would you take him? That was my thought process of him during the hospital. Like, why would you take him? And then after he got home, and it was still rough when he got home. It was like, okay, am I being punished in a sense? Is this a punishment for something? Or, don't take what I've waited for, all this time. I think the biggest part probably once he got home and he was so dependent on the oxygen and stuff, and so I found myself becoming more of a nurse
right
at that point. And he would get on me like, don't turn that oxygen down and this, that, and the other, but he had got to, for me, looking at him, I thought he had got to the point that he was just almost in a paranoid state, like to even leave it for a moment and go to the bathroom and come back. So I found myself trying to help in that sense, like, hey baby, just try it like this, and trying to get him. Like, he was stuck in the room for,
months.
Probably months. And then when he finally got out, it may not have been anything but going out in the garage and just sitting for 15
watching cars go by, touching the grass.
It was just the simple things.
Blow.
It makes you appreciate
life.
Small things, life in general.
Now, let me ask you this. During this whole trial, did you ever get angry with God? Either one of you all can answer, or both.
I would say yes. And I say yes again for the point that, for me, I'm thinking, God, I'm doing everything right. Or I'm trying. This is what you have asked of me, and this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do good. I'm trying to be obedient. And now this is what you choose to put me through. This is what I have to deal with.
Right. What about you, Jett?
Well, the 1 second, I'm not gonna say I was mad, right? I say the 1 second that I gave up, right? I just wasn't sure. I was tired, hurting, and just for that 1 second, I wouldn't say angry, but question. You know what I mean? That didn't last long. Right. So it's always good to have a praying family. And when my prayers was weak, theirs was strong. Right? So never question. just got tired, you know what I mean, of all the negative news and things of that nature. But, you know, the good thing about it is when you're living for not just you, you find a way to ask God to pull you through, right? And that's pretty much how I went. Prayed and prayed and prayed, and I knew it was one reason why I was still living, and it was because He was there.
He was able to wean off the oxygen like 2 months earlier than he was supposed to. So all of these things started happening. He started walking down the street, whereas when he first got home, he couldn't even walk from the car into the laundry room, which was the next room. So he had to sit down in between just trying to get into the house. So the good part of that is once he believed, or his faith kicked back in of what he could do.
He started believing in himself again.
Yes. And got back in the church. We were in the parking lot then. Came back to church, and I think
that was a turning point for me.
Yeah, Pastor prayed for him, and then he got up out of the car. Pastor didn't know it was there, and he got up out of the car and waved. So I think that was the biggest turning point, I would say.
What is a big lesson that you learned about yourself and maybe also about God during this process?
I would say one of the biggest things that I've learned, God's timing is not our timing. That would be, you hear it, but until it actually hits you directly, did I want him to spend that much time in the hospital? No. But did I want him to come out of the hospital? Yes. So my thing was, it wasn't on our time, it was on his time. So that would be one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. And I think one of the things with that is also that was a trial that we needed to go through. Because our relationship was so new. That was one thing I would say that, I don't want to say test, but I'm going to say test for lack of better wording, to see were we really ready for what we said we was ready for. Those vows that we took on June 27th, and it just, we didn't expect to have to use them all, but it happened. So I think that's a big thing, that we know that living through that, we can live through a whole lot. That was a hard time, but we made it through. We made it through.
For me, it was more of a faith building process, right? Now, I've always been a church going guy, right? But this process really made me understand God's power, right? Like, it really made me understand the journey, walking spiritually and stuff like that. I could really sit here today and say, well, for God, I wouldn't be alive right now. Period. Right? I was calling him in the hospital, and I didn't even know that he was already there. Right?
That's good.
So when I couldn't breathe, those machines was reading negative. I didn't have any oxygen, but God was breathing through me to keep me alive. I can really, really, really honestly say that, right? So for me, my whole perspective on life changed, right? Things that used to be important wasn't so important anymore, right? The way that I treat people was really one of my biggest priorities, changing, right? Loving my wife, kids and family is a purpose, right? My purpose now is to go to church. I got a lot from Pastor Clay. He's very transparent, right? So my purpose now is to take that and disperse it within my school, the youth that I work with. So a lot of times I don't really show a lot in church, but when I do, I take it. And I think God has a purpose for everybody. And I think me spreading it and teaching in school is my purpose right now. I have to let that flow over until doing more working in the church. Right now, I think because, foster care, everything I do is to teach them what I did wrong, right? On how not to go through the same path. And now that I have a spiritual being behind me, I'm better at pushing that word to where it's understood. That makes sense?
Yeah.
My wife plays a huge role in that because from when I met her, I'm not the same person, right? She has allowed her faith to accept me for just who I am as a person, right? And she was able to communicate what we want, where we want it to be, where we want to be here and in the future. And she was able to help me create that person that I needed to be in order to give the love to her as far as our quality of life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think honestly, I think we're growing spiritually together because I'm not where I was. I'm not where I need to be, but I'm definitely not where I was 4 or 5 years ago. So I think this is a walk we're taking together. We're getting more active in the church, getting more active, more spiritual, and just, I guess, even with just the little ministries that we've become a part of, I think there's still more to do, but I think this is a big start for us, because I was always the one in the back. I'm okay with being in the background, but sometimes being in the background, you don't get out what you need to get out to those people that are just like you. So I think that's where we're headed right now.
So my whole takeaway from this life lesson that we went through together was you always have to allow your faith to lead you. Have to keep God first. I wasn't at the point where I felt like, I remember looking in the mirror when I got home and my body had transformed to something I'd never seen it bad, right? And I didn't even want to show myself to my wife, right? But her energy kept me motivated to know that it was okay, right? You can't allow certain situations to keep you from being who you are. You have to get out there and allow the people who love you actually love you, right? Staying in the house, it's just a temporary thing. But when you take that step out, like I did to go to church, I was looking bad. But I knew church was where I needed to be, right? And that was a turnaround for me. The support and love that I felt at that church, and the embrace I got, motivated me to want to go the next Sunday, and the next Sunday, and the next Sunday, the next Sunday. And that's where we need to be. Any circumstance you're going through, or whether it's sickness, job related, whatever, the only place you're gonna find some peace in is that church. And because you're able to get different perspectives from other testimonies that make you say, this was all for a purpose, right? And that's how I see it. I thank God that I went through it, right? Because today I'm able to say my fabric is thicker than it once was. I'm able to be a better person now because of it.
So from the situation, what I learned is you are stronger than what you think you are. Don't say what you can't do, because this is a situation, first, I never thought I'd be in. Secondly, didn't think I could make it through. And thirdly, sometimes we have to cry. There were many nights that I was in the closet because I didn't want anybody else to hear me. However, those were just the moments that I needed to myself. After I would have the cry, then I'd come back and, you know, you pray through it and you live another day and you just pick you up. That was a long process, but now I think it's made me a stronger person. It's made me a stronger believer, and my faith is so much more than what it was before I experienced this.
You've heard the statement that trouble doesn't last always, that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Well, the Jetts are enjoying joy. They've gone through the storm together. They've held on, and now they're moving forth with a renewed passion, a renewed love for one another, and not taking any moment for granted. When everything in his body and his circumstances was telling him to give up, he decided to fight. He decided that he had much more to live for. So my friend Jett, live on, dance on, love on.